Hello and welcome to the BG podcast. My name is A.J. Bingham, CEO of Bingham Group. Joining me is my co-host Hannah Garcia. Welcome. Well, I always say we always say welcome to the show. This is always us.
Yeah.
Glad to see you today in person. We do these sometimes live in person. So, how's the day going so far?
Pretty good. Early morning, but last night I was at a Austin Young Chamber event there, Let's Talk, which is like a facilitated networking. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a lot of fun. Got to see and meet a lot of great people.
Very familiar with the Austin Young Chamber of Commerce (AYC). I was actually on the board a long, long time ago.
Nice,
So,
nice.
but continuing on with the week, we're closing out the week of October, October 9th. And kind of big news at the beginning of the week, we had the council committee that was in charge of selecting or vetting and selecting a search firm that would do the city manager search. A lot, I would say right there. But point being that committee picked or has recommended a search firm that will be up before the full council next week on the 19th. And so big news as we've discussed in prior shows. So Hannah, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, they're already a little bit behind schedule, the one they posted. So I don't think we'll have a city manager or new city, not real city manager, but new like official
City manager.
Yes, there we go. That's the word. By the September 2024 date they originally. I think that might be within a few months of that, but just with the fact that we've already, I believe, maybe a week or two behind from the schedule posted, I do think that's gonna drag on just a month or two longer than originally planned. But they're doing what they said they're doing. They're getting all their ducks in order to pick a new city manager for that permanent position. So just think it's also a good thing compared to last time when they didn't necessarily choose a search firm who had done public sector searches.
First, than that, because it was might as well have been a lifetime ago.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was back in what, like 2017?
Wow, yeah.
So
whole different world.
Around that time when they were choosing, when the city of Austin was choosing a new city manager after the Ott left. And so
that's correct. Those are first year in business.
Yeah, yeah. Right. And so that was they chose a search firm that had never really had any experience in the public sector. And then there was a lot of issues related to that. The statesman sued to see all of the candidates that had been chosen because they had tried to keep some privacy around that. And it was just kind of a big public debacle, I think, from a lot of people's perspectives. So I'm glad to see that they chose a search firm that has a lot of experience in the public sector and even has public partners in their name.
And that firm is Mosaic Public Partners. We'll have a link to their firm site in the show notes. And yeah, I think our last city manager search took about 13 months, right? So with this one, I think I think that the schedule they put out was approximate, right? But with the firm now in place, if council is running anything like if this is running anything like council has been running their meetings, I expect it to be a fairly orderly process. I think the biggest point on this for the public and for council consideration, and I'm sure they're thinking about this, is around community engagement. And your thoughts on that?
I think that on October 19th at that meeting, we're going to hear a lot about community engagement and what they expect from Mosaic Public Partners in respect to that community engagement. I think we've seen the community come out, whether it's for the Zilker Vision Plan or, rezoning cases, even childcare. They've come out and spoken and said their piece. And so one of the things I think this city really, really values is community engagement. And so I definitely think the city council hears that and feels that. And so we'll definitely see either city council asking for it very publicly or this search firm saying that they're going to do it very publicly.
And again, for the folks who aren't aware of how the city of Austin government works and why this is important to everyone, both the average public citizen as well as the business community here, every community in Austin, is because the city manager is the CEO of the city. They are the highest ranking hired official, city staff official. The only people that can fire or hire that person is the council. It's within that city manager's power to hire and fire police chiefs and pretty much every other person under that role. And so, strong executive. Our council is a council manager form of government. I think people didn't really. I don't think people understood the power the city manager had up until during the pandemic, as well as tied in the dual impact of the pandemic and the response to that from the city, which was under the city manager's control, with council guidance and input, but it's really under the city manager to do public health and so on, as well as, we had these calls for then police chief Manley to be fired by members of council. And then city manager Crunk, it was with his purview not to fire him for his reasons as he saw fit. But I think that really exposed just the power of that role. And so tying into community engagement for Mosaic Public Partners, I think would be a big call for that. We've seen that too, even on the, there's an Austin ISD superintendent search going on. I know a big part of that, the public has called for a lot, significant engagement around that selection too.
Yeah, and just kind of seeing what I've heard at commissions and other public avenues for people to speak. One of the things they've said is they don't just want a survey. They want real, substantial community engagement. And with a city that's growing as large as ours is and does cover a lot of actual area, that's a pretty difficult thing to do. So I think this is a big challenge, but city council and hopefully this new search firm is very creative about that, and they're able to get that done within these constraints that we have.
We'll definitely be watching, and I think once that slate of finalists is announced, the big thing is, again, this is for those, is free advice from I guess we're insiders, right? The free advice from us is whoever's selected, it's looking at where those cities are coming from, what forms of government it was. Some, most cities, depending on the city, they may be like Austin, they may come from strong merit forms of government, but also the kind of issues that person, he or them or they, dealt with, because those will definitely give you a good view of how they might approach city of Austin. I mean, similar to kind of a Supreme Court justice picks.
Yeah.
Right. So interesting times with that person. We'll have a new city manager in place by January 1st, 2025. I know. And I think the plan is for interim city manager Garza we have him through at least this next FY24 budget cycle, which so a lot of, and we'll get to that in our next topic around the city, or our deep dive rather, still a significant sway. And as we've talked about the last several months, right, a lot of change, staff changes and reorganizations have happened under interim city manager Garza's watch.
Yeah, and I would attribute that to him and the mayor being very aligned. I think they want to work together because they want to get things done, and I think we've seen that with council as well.
This is the era. What do we call this? The era of
back to the basics and not getting things done.
We've mentioned before, but it'll come to us. But it's
the bias towards
action era. Yes.
And so they've really walked the walk and talked the talk. And so.
And own their decisions too,
which I really respect. I think it's great what they're that they make these decisions and they stand by, and they don't try to hide behind anything, which is quite refreshing, I think, in the past couple of years. But I definitely think because of that kind of I guess unilateral almost, they're kind of on the same page, and the city council kind of follows in most cases, that they're able to get a lot more done. We've seen the city manager have support in a way that I don't think he's necessarily had in the past. There typically was with former city manager Spencer Cronk, typically there was a city council member saying, like, look at what you did wrong. Look at this thing that you did wrong that we don't like. And so, it was the first with former city manager Cronk, that was the first time we had a council member on the dais call for him to resign, or for them to resign, which was kind of huge. And so, at least in my career, this is the first time I'm really seeing support for a city manager and them really, standing by their decisions and not hiding anything. And I think that's led to a lot more getting done in the city. We've seen, whether it be childcare or land use reform, we're seeing things get done. And I'm really, really appreciative that, we're trying to piecemeal a land development code, which is a huge, huge task to ask. Well, we're also trying to fix development services. A lot of campaign promises being seen through. And so,
you got a McKinsey report, and then I think the substantive work, or it was all substantive, but the follow through now and the execution of that report is being conducted.
Yeah, and they budgeted for McKinsey to really implement those changes in this new fiscal year's budget. And so I think we'll see a lot of good changes happen very, very soon. And so, I think it's great that they're all on the same page, the entire dais and manager, that they want to get things done and make things better within the constraints that they have right now. And so,
and turning towards that, so again, coming back to interim city manager Garza, and just be aligned with the council, right? And so we had recently, or is a carryover from last week, but we had the prior week, interim city manager Garza had announced the appointment. Actually, it was a Friday before last, right? It was the memo was Friday, but got reported that following Monday. But the hiring, or the permanent hiring of a new lead for the Office of Police Oversight. And this is the office it's a civilian position that provides investigators access to all police records and interviews witnesses for gathering evidence of police misconduct. So this was big because why? The hiring. Like, what?
Oh, yeah. Yes. So in previous years, our former city manager, Spencer Crump, promised that this would be found with a national search. And then when interim city manager Jesus Garza took office, he also reiterated that they would do a national search to find this person. But with, I believe, Prop A that passed this previous
May, and Prop A it passed resoundingly rather, but
80%.
Yeah, this was, we're jumping ahead a little bit, but Prop A, for context, was a proposition that was designed to return, I'm quoting this, were designed to return powers to the Civilian Police Oversight Office and allow investigators to access all police records and interview witnesses while gathering evidence of police misconduct. And so this was important because the office, prior to Prop A passing its passage, had really been gutted, right?
Yeah.
It lacked teeth. And so Prop A was heavily supported by the criminal justice nonprofit Equity Action. So with this passing, I think, it was a confluence of things. But again, the city manager had a statement earlier this week. He has his views on the hiring, but he's taken by it. Council, definitely, there are members of council who are very frustrated by that, and they vocalize that. And I think it'll be interesting to see. I think up until now, you hadn't seen a lot of vocal frustration on the city manager's hiring or belts, right? Decisions. This one really showed, I think, because of this particular role, and because of the perception that there were some that viewed this as a ironclad promise or whatever it may be. We'll see how this plays out. I'm sure next Thursday, I'll bring it at work session. But there already have been public comments made, several articles about it from council, and this, by the record, aren't happy.
Yeah, and in his interim city manager Garza's kind of response as to why he made this decision was so that the city could comply with Prop A. We've heard a lot of issues around police oversight and concern about whether the police are being overseen correctly and efficiently and ethically. And so this was a big, I think, issue around that a lot of council members as well as constituents were very concerned about. And so I think that's why we're seeing a lot of people kind of be angry about it. They did view that as a promise. And so I understand why, like, politically and I guess policy-wise, they had to do that because, it's to be in compliance with the proposition that was passed, but it's also going back on a promise that was made. So it's very complicated, and I would not want to be an interim city manager Garza's position right now.
That being said, he's off. I think that always the nuance with an interim person, like just objectively, right? He came out of retirement for this job, so it's not. I think he is. Darrell pointed before, right? He came in and he is the bias towards action era, and you've seen sweeping change, and he's it's very strong leadership, right? And I think with that comes reviews on that, and so again, we're just more reiterating things that have been said in the media and everything else, but more to come on that next week. But it does tie into, I think, the overall discussion around a permanent city manager who, presumably this isn't their last job.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a career. And
one of the things I think also is that a new city manager, when they do come in and permanently take that role, is they can open that job position back up if they wanted to, and potentially do a national search that includes the person that's currently in that office. There's a lot of things that I think that the city we have a lot of interim directors.
Yeah, you did work. You did a chart, a red line last month on that. But like, I mean, so let's get beyond this role, right? I think once that new permanent hire city manager is in place, we have a police chief search we need to do. We have several assistant city managers who are interim,
We
right?
need an HR director.
So airport director, Austin energy director. So there's a lot of work. There's a lot of work to be done, and I think it's a mix of I think this will be the process won't be expedited, but it'll be if it's run like how council meetings have been run this year, it'll be thoughtful. But in Austin, the city loves community engagement, and that'll happen. But we need permanent leadership in place, and we need permanent leadership at the very top. We need permanent leadership, or at least, for the presume permanent leadership at the ACM level and management level, or the management level, and so on. So more to come on that. And then also what happened this week at the Capitol.
Special session kicked off.
Special session on school vouchers. Yes. We've seen some of the digital billboard bans rolling around downtown.
So it's technically not school vouchers. I was watching and reading about this. It's education savings accounts.
I see.
Which are slightly different from vouchers. And so that actually passed the Senate Education Committee, I believe, either last night or 2 nights ago. But that's passed one committee, so it's got another chamber to go through. But yeah, I think they only have another 28 days left to get this done, and they've got 2 other items on that agenda, which include, I believe, border security.
And I should go. We don't follow the Capitol that much, but like this border security, school vouchers, and we'll have it in our next show, yes. I'm sure. But tied to that too, right? This is all happening right under the umbrella of I think people would perceive as an intra-party, dust up, right, in the GOP, right, in that at the very top. And the very top with the speaker and lieutenant governor, and the speaker, lieutenant governor, as well as the governor. But then also this is tied in. This special session comes on the heels, a week or 2 after the Senate resoundingly finding or absolving A.J. or Attorney General Paxton of the charges against him that came out of the House impeachment hearing.
Yeah.
So, and there are, it's primary season is on the horizon, is nigh, maybe is the word. I don't know if you fancy, but it's coming, and A.G. Paxton is already, he's gunning for people who, and he said as much. He's going after people.
He said there will be consequences.
There will be consequences. He's going after people who voted for her, perceived otherwise, voted for him to be impeached, including the speaker. And then there's also there's between the speaker and the lieutenant governor, also news this week about the PAC that talk about this.
Yeah, so this was very interesting, where we had I believe his name is Nick Fuentes.
From
the PAC, and he donated.
Known white supremacist.
Yes, and I believe he's also a Holocaust denier and Nazi sympathizer, among other horrible things.
Fanboy, I think.
Yeah, and so he met with several other legislators, and then as well as Kyle.
Former House member Jonathan Stickland. I
believe Kyle Rittenhouse was there, and several current legislators apparently accepted money from Nick Fuentes' PAC, resulting in a lot of public outcries related to this, just because he is a known Holocaust denier, Nazi sympathizer.
Allegedly, State GOP Chair Rinaldi was there as well. Yeah,
and so it was a lot of people that I think shouldn't have necessarily been in that room that weren't in that room.
Kinda.
Yeah, and so they've come out and said this, I'm sorry, and they've.
Well, 2 members have already, when this broke, the speaker, the Texas Tribune broke the story. We'll have it looked at in our show notes, but the speaker feeling are pretty on the heat, contemporaneously called for those members who had received money from the PAC to return. And I think as of today, I read that 2 I don't know who the members are, but 2 had returned the money.
I saw,
but they're also yes.
Representative Jared Patterson. I saw his tweet saying that he's returned the money. But no, I think this is once again showing that the I think we've seen a little bit of infighting on both sides of the aisle, but very publicly. And recently, it's happening on the Republicans' side of the aisle. And so we're seeing a lot of infighting. And I'm very curious to see how this will pan out in the primaries. Whether there will be fractions in the party and stuff like that, and whether
fractions already there. It's more. I think it's more how deep can it go, especially we're in a presidential cycle.
Yeah, like will it split the vote? I think that's something I'm very concerned about. However, that I think that's what we expected in 2016, and it didn't happen. And so, very curious to see how this will pan out. We're literally watching history. So
a lot of if you follow Twitter or X, whatever it's called now, but just a lot of rhino has been thrown around a lot.
That was thrown
Republican
around
name only, or sorry, Republican in name only.
I saw that a lot during the Paxton trial.
And even with this, I saw that just with folks, some of the folks who were, and there's more comments from the public, quote unquote, on X, right? But just there was questioning, well, hey, why about the accusations from folks, well, why they should return money. Yeah. So it's a lot of, yes, history is being made in at all levels, the capitals, state capitals, or U.S. capital as well. And so it's going to be an interesting primary season. It's an interesting season right now. Yeah. And I think it'll only get more interesting now. It's similar to I tell Hannah when she started with us, I can't tell you what kind of interesting it's going to be, but it will be interesting. Sometimes it's the sunshine, rainbows, and sometimes it's what we have today.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to say the least.
Yes, always interesting. And then, on more lighter news, we have ACL weekend too.
Yes, the 1975 will be here this weekend.
Oh yes. I would say I'm familiar, but I think I do know them.
Yeah, no,
they came with my Spotify.
Maddie Healy, if you are listening to this, I'm free this weekend.
And then the following weekend, this is more for those who are, really this weekend too, for travelers coming in or out of Austin, where the airport's jam-packed more than usual. But on the heels of this, we have on the 20th and the 22nd, F1's back for the 2023 United States Grand Prix. And that will definitely be a massive crowd getting in and out of the airport. So if I was y'all, make sure your TSA pre-check. And I would also definitely get there or either Uber or get there use that 3-hour early warning they give you to get there.
Yeah, no, there's not much public transit. I don't think there's any public transit out there.
So no, you better Uber or Lyft.
Yes, you gotta Uber or drive yourself out there.
With that, and council's in next week on the 19th. They have work session on the 17th, and we're watching that. And as always, look for the week ahead from us on our socials on Monday morning. Hannah, anything else though before we close the show out?
Just a busy week to live in, or busy month to live in Austin.
Oh yes,
it feels like events every other week. So everybody stay safe out there. Enjoy the cooler weather or slightly cooler weather.
Remember to hydrate.
Yes.